Welcome into the Thunder basketball universe presented by COOP Ale Works. The Thunder has played a whopping 3 games since we last podcasted, so it's safe to say we have a lot to talk about. Everything from a game-winning steal and score from Lu Dort on Friday to some big-time minutes from the Thunder's young players over these past 3 games. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get right to it. Gallo, we got a lot to talk about. Just with Friday's game alone, that game against Sacramento, the Thunder's first city night, there was just a lot happening in that arena that night. Obviously, a big-time steal and score by Lu Dort, but some big-time minutes from Thunder young players and rookies since then as well.
That's right, and against 2 of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, the Brooklyn Nets and the Miami Heat, and Mark Daigneault and the coaching staff and the organization rolled these guys out there, and they said, we're going to put you against Kevin Durant and James Harden. And we saw a variety of guys get those matchups against Kyle Lowry and Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. I mean, the list goes on over the last 2 nights on that home back-to-back. And so as the Thunder started this 4-game homestand with a really nice win, 2 losses against veteran squads, but they fought and they were in those games competitively, even if they didn't execute.
One of my contenders for You Could Say That Again was a quote by Mark Daigneault, and it said, "You don't get better by lifting 10-pound weights." And That's exactly what the Thunder did going up against Brooklyn and Miami. They threw really strong punches in both of those games. And like you said, they competed, they fought hard. And because of that, they have a lot of lessons to take out of that. Speaking of You Can Say That Again, let's get right to it. Nick Gallo, what you got?
All right. Mine is back up and shoot deeper. And I just thought that's like an amazing quote about like life and adjusting to things coming at you. Just be confident. Take it a step back.
Basketball is just a litany of life lessons, really.
So I have to be honest with you, Paris. You weren't in the room when this quote was delivered.
I was about to say, because I have no idea who said this.
This was Ty Jerome, and this is a guy who we've seen continue to extend his range. In the 4th quarter alone against Brooklyn, he had 9 points on 3 made field goals. 2 of them were 3-pointers. Hit just a nice flurry of jumpers, and this is a guy who does not have elite athleticism. Teams are going to crowd up on him at the 3-point line. He showed how effective he can be from behind the arc last year, up above 40%. And so his remedy to being pressured is, all right, I'm going to step back and shoot a little bit deeper.
And he is just ready every time he steps into the game for the Thunder. Something that Shea talked about him was, we know he can shoot the ball and we know what he can do offensively, but what continues to impress us is his readiness. And his minutes have fluctuated, throughout this season so far. But in a game like going up against the Brooklyn Nets, I mean, he came in and he gave the Thunder what they needed, and that was a spark just to turn the game around and give them some momentum, just to keep the game somewhat within striking distance.
The bigger picture reason that I picked this quote in particular, though, is this is an exact example of what every single one of these young players on this Thunder team is going through. Mm-hmm. Josh Giddy is getting game planned against for the first time ever in his NBA career. Shea, all you have to do is watch 2 seconds of a game and you can see that he's being game planned against and schemed against, that teams are throwing double, triple teams at him sometimes. He is recognizing when double teams are coming at him before they even begin to happen. And Darius Baisley getting schemed against. All of these young guys. Lu Dort, he's going to get schemed against here coming up soon as well, just given the streak that he's on. So for a guy like Ty to recognize that he's being defended differently as a young player and figure out, okay, there's something that I've got to do to become better. It's not like I'm just going to bail out of this responsibility that I have to be a shooter for this team. I've got to do it at an even higher level. I've got to, in that game of ratcheted up stakes, he's got to go one more in order to be effective for this team.
And adjust in game, right? Like some of the schemes that teams are throwing at, Shea and Josh, those are happening in real time. Some of those, start at the very tip of the game. Like anything that a team throws at Shea, that's pretty much from 1st quarter to 4th quarter. But, anything that new that they throw at them, you got to be able to adjust in game. So for a guy like Ty, who comes off the bench sometimes in the middle of a game, being able to recognize how teams are guarding some of these different players and where the seams, the creases, and the gaps are, that he can make himself effective. That says a lot about his IQ.
That's right. It's not just escalation for escalation's sake. It's how do you leverage what the defense is trying to take away from you to the benefit of the team. And Ty thinks, if I move back deeper, 1, I can still knock down some of these shots. And 2, we're stretching the defense even more, and that gives advantages to guys if he's able to make quick reads and quick passes.
This is an extension of the other quote. I think this was a Shea That Again quote too, or maybe not. But he said, he was asked about like, is there a limit to your range?
Yeah, that's right.
He's like, I have to be on this side of half court.
At least on the right side of half court. All right, Paris, hit me with your quote.
All right. He just made a Poku play.
Well, unless Poku was speaking in the third person, that can't be from Poku.
It wasn't.
Tell me who it was.
That was Shea talking about Poku, and this was after the Sacramento game. And I know I'm getting into Friday a little early. We're going to talk a little bit more about that game later on in the podcast, but I wanted to highlight Poku here because this wasn't just, a one-time thing for Poku. Really, over these past 3 games, we've seen some really efficient minutes from Poku, and that's exactly what this Thunder coaching staff has been looking for and asking of from him this season. Obviously, his role is a lot different this season than it was last season. He's coming off of the bench, and he has to be effective with the minutes that he's given on the floor. He can obviously do a lot of different things. He's 7 feet tall with guard-like abilities. And so the ability for him to refine kind of what he brings to the floor, what the team needs at that moment. In the Sacramento game, it was a couple of really great passes.
To Derek Favors.
One was a behind the back, just razzle-dazzle, a Poku play, as
That's
Shea
right,
is saying. And those are the sort of things that Poku can do when he steps into the game, whether it's make sharp passes, run the floor, get a rebound, or just, get a bucket like he did in the Thunder's last game against Miami. He can kind of do a lot of different things, but it's about being efficient with those minutes that he's getting.
And it's pairing the Poku plays with the hustle plays and the simple plays.
Right.
So the one that you're referencing came off of getting his own miss on an offensive rebound. That's just an extra effort hustle play. He shot a floater, came off the front iron. He went up and grabbed it and then flipped it behind his back to Favors. In that same game, not too much longer after that, he chases down Chimezie Metu for a block shot on a surefire layup that would have really put pressure on the Thunder in the fourth quarter. Poku chases him down, makes a huge block. He finished, that game with a great amount of scoring and defensive work that he did in that game. And the same goes for the next night against Brooklyn. He goes for 8-6, 1-1. I mean, just continues to kind of rack up, as you're saying, these efficient stat lines.
Yeah, and the point here is that, he only scored a point in that game against Sacramento. But because he was able to help generate offense, it seemed like he was just, all over the floor offensively and like really helping to generate a lot of points. And then you set that right next to this last Miami game where he came in 9 points in 9 minutes. That third quarter, he exploded for seven straight points, 2 dunks, and then a buzzer-beating 3-pointer. And that sort of possession, that buzzer-beating 3, Shea was getting double-teamed. Again, this goes back to the same point we were making earlier. Shea was getting double-teamed, knew that double-team was coming, and Poku just stayed spaced, stayed wide, and was ready to knock down that shot when Shea passed it to him.
Great understanding of time, score, situation, and knowing that he had to be catch fire ready to take that 3. I love watching Poku also glide to the rim. The way that he kind of like gets to the bucket on dunks is different than anybody else on the team. It's really fun to watch. But also one other thing that Poku has leaned into, as he should, is the mid-range game. He's getting closed out on. And he's shot, coming into that Miami game, he's shot over 50% in the mid-range so far this season. That's really good. That's really efficient. If you're shooting above 50% in the mid-range, that's sort of beating the analytics to some degree. And so if he's not going to knock down a high percentage of 3-point attempts, moving into the mid-range is a good shot for him.
And he can shoot over a lot of people, obviously.
That's right.
And how many of those mid-ranges, from my recollection, especially in this Miami game, they were patient. They were, methodical. It wasn't just like, oh, this is like the last resort. I picked up my dribble. I can't do anything else. It was, okay, I shook this guy. All right, I might be able to give a shot fake here and create some space, and then get up a really good look at a mid-range shot. They weren't rushed. They weren't necessarily like a last resort shot. They were good looks by Poku.
I'm really encouraged by what we're seeing from him and his ability to play tight and play efficient and play controlled in a condensed stretch is a really, really strong professional skill. And he got all of these opportunities last year to play 35 minutes and just like let it all hang out. This is his opportunity to become a legitimate two-way NBA rotation player.
Absolutely. You know what I love most about his performance against Miami?
What's that?
His family was in the stands to watch. I was looking up in the stands and I saw a guy that looked just like Poku sitting, and I was like, wait a second, what's happening over here? It was his brother.
Well, there's the famous shot of him and his family sitting around the dining table on draft night in Serbia or Greece. I can't remember which of the two countries that they were in at that time. And I remember looking up at the stands the last few games during this homestand and being like, wow, there they all are. They're in the same row. They're just missing Poku himself sitting in the middle of that table.
Really heartwarming for Poku.
It's good stuff.
All right, let's go into I keep doing this. You can say that again and name that dude. I want to combine them. Name that dude. You're at first.
All right, name that dude. Here is the stat line for you. 3 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 3 deflections, and 5 contested shots.
What didn't this person do?
He didn't write the game recap for OKCThunder.com, but besides that, did about everything besides that.
That's because I wrote that.
That's right.
And I put that in there. This is Aaron Wiggins.
That's right. He played 21 minutes. He was the first guy off the bench for the Thunder in his very first NBA regular season game. He played a ton in Summer League, played a ton in the preseason, and really performed well in both of those situations. And the coaching staff was really pleased with what they saw. This was his first opportunity, and he got thrown into the fire in that Brooklyn game, had to defend some high-level NBA players.
This is where that quote from Mark Dagnall came in of, you don't get better by lifting 10-pound weights. And really with two-way players, the philosophy for the Thunder coaching staff is, we're not going to wait for like the most opportune time to put these guys in game and see what they're made of. If we want to see how Aaron Wiggins fares against James Harden, let's put him up against James Harden. Let's put him up against these guys that are, veteran, most elite players in the NBA and see how they fare. So this was a really good test for Aaron. And he admittedly had a little bit of nerves coming into the game, but once he stepped in, he showed a lot of, comfortability out there. And I think a lot of that could be credited to the time that he spent with the OKC Blue so far this season.
That's right. 3 games with the Blue just helps him keep everything sharp and make sure that he's getting those great game reps. But the reason why being first off the bench matters is because he was first off the bench again against Miami, just to add that in. That's the first time that like guys are coming into the game. The starters for the other team are still in.
Right.
And so, yes, the Thunder has seen him against G League players. If they try to hide a guy like him, bury him kind of in a deeper part of the rotation in the second unit, he's playing against competition that's not exactly going to stretch him, as you're saying, the 10-pound weight comment. So seeing him early as quickly as possible, throwing him right in there against the starters from the other team, that's where you want to see. You want to see if this guy can hold up athletically and physically against the league's best, because ultimately, if he's going to get more minutes at this level, if he's going to be a guy they want to invest in long term, the reason for him to be a part of that mix is, can he hold up against some of those guys?
And really with Aaron, he's got that physical ability to be really effective on the defensive end. And that is something that he brought to the table in Summer League, training camp. That's something that was understood and well respected. And we saw in both of these games for Aaron, he was deflecting passes, like you mentioned, contesting shots all over kind of the boards and rebounds, where they want to see, him layer on and show some consistency is just what he's able to bring on the offensive end and layer in kind of the systematics of the game offensively. And that's where the Blue has really helped him. And with these past 2 games, and the Miami game specifically, because he came in and he had 6 points, knocked down 2 threes, seemed like he was just like, comfortable. He was where he needed to be. And Miami was throwing a lot of different defensive looks at the Thunder. So that was an interesting test to see, okay, where do I need to be in offensively when they're in a 2-3 kind of matchup weird zone happening right now?
It's going to be up and down offensively. A couple things that I noted were he had the 4 assists in the first game that he was out there, none in the second game, and he has only taken 3-pointers so far. He's 3 for 8 in the 2 games. To get some more offensive balance, I think would be good for him. I'm sure the coaching staff is looking for him as well. He has been ready to catch and fire when he's gotten those 3-point looks. That's obviously something that you want to see from a guy like Aaron Wiggins, and he's made those shots. He showed that in the preseason as well, just being ready to launch. But you also want to see him be able to put the ball on the deck and make a little bit of something else happen. He had a charge, I think, last night against Miami. So just continuing to see him get more comfortable on that end of the floor will be great.
And we know he's capable of it. We saw it in Summer League.
Right.
I remember that, attack, spin moves, scoop and score. Just he's capable of those sort of plays. So layering that add in on the offensive end, I think is another area of growth for him.
And as we talked about with Ty Jerome and some of these other young players, teams will start to recognize when that spin move is coming.
Exactly.
They did with Darius Baisley. Baisley used that spin move to great effect his rookie year. Second year, that was taken away. So he had to counter that, figure out how he could get to it in certain situations. So keep an eye on Aaron Wiggins for sure.
All right. Here's my dude.
Yeah.
All right. 12 points. I'm going back, by the way. This is not the last game. I'll give you that hint.
Okay.
12 points, 5 for 8 from the field, including 1 for 1 from the 3-point line in 19 minutes.
This was Trey Mann.
Precisely.
Sacramento.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us about Trey.
So Trey, got to give a lot of props to Trey because he's been going up and down between the Thunder and the Blue this season. He stepped in the Sacramento game in incredibly efficient minutes and just provided that offensive pop that the Thunder knows that Trey can bring. He needs to be aggressive when he's got the ball, and he can get downhill and get to the rim. He's just so slippery, right? Like it's hard to keep him in front because he's just so quick and has that quick first step. But he also has the ability to knock down shots from behind the arc. And so this Sacramento game for me was kind of an indicator of what Trey can look like when he's playing aggressively and he's really comfortable and confident out there with the Thunder.
Yeah, he's a quick first step type of guy. When you see him out there, you wonder why there's so much space between him and a defender, and that's because he's got them on their heels a little bit. He moves well off the ball. That's a continued skill that he's been working at. The number one thing, though, that the Thunder coaching staff has been asking of him is just competitiveness. Competitiveness defensively. He's gotten a few aggressive fouls. He said, I'd rather get fouls being tough than fouls being weak. And I thought that was another contender for you can say that again.
There were a lot of really good quotes over this past 4 days.
Yeah, when you get 3 games in a row, those are things that are gonna rack up for us. But so some of those things are gonna happen. But what else is gonna happen is you're gonna see him diving on the floor for loose balls. When you're doing the same thing that Kenrich Williams is doing, and they're like in tandem diving on the floor for a loose ball, you know you're doing something right competitively.
Yeah, and going back to just this is what you want to foul. You'd rather have to wrangle him in than push him in the back.
No doubt about it.
And tell him to go harder defensively. And that's a tough balance for any young player, right? The balance between aggression and discipline, that they're pulling away from each other, and it's a hard thing to find that, that fine line. And for Trey, he's in the right direction, giving the effort, giving the energy, and now it's just about adding that layer of discipline to the defensive end. The other thing I want to note about Trey is in the Thunder's game against Brooklyn, he stepped in and just knocked down a 3-pointer that he came in, played 6 minutes, but he was 1 for 1 from the field, and that was the 3-pointer.
Yeah.
Earlier that day, he logged a double-double with the Blue.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
Pretty amazing. And it was just such a cool thing for me to see that, he was able to be effective, be where his feet are with the Blue, make the most of that opportunity, and then come in, be ready to go off the bench for the Thunder and knock down the only shot that he took in the game.
Yeah, I talked to him before that game, actually between the 2 games, I should say, where he had the 18-point and I believe 12-rebound double-double against the Santa Cruz Warriors for the OKC Blue in the win on Sunday morning inside Paycom Center. And he said it's just about sort of like resetting. It was doing everything that you can to help the team win, and then coming back and just getting your mind and body ready for the next game. And he said it reminded him of AAU days actually a little bit, and that's good experience for those guys to understand that they've got to be able to turn the page quickly, no matter if it was a good game or a bad game. And the fact of the matter is, he got himself ready, he got himself in position, and he became the first Thunder player to play extended minutes in 2 games for 2 different teams on the same day.
And the biggest thing is reps,
right?
With all of these young guys. So the amount of reps that he got just in that 12-hour window was incredible, and something that is really beneficial for not just Trey but any of these guys. Teo, Aaron Wiggins, obviously, Veet Krejci, he's down there with the Blue as well. Any of these guys that have the opportunity to get those extra reps, that time on the floor, that is so precious and so valuable in your growth and development as a young player. Just making the most out of that, and just being where your feet are in that time, and recognizing that this is a really important opportunity for me.
I want to touch on the aggressiveness versus discipline comment that you were making earlier, and I think we're seeing a little bit of a trend as it relates to that, where rookie year, they're really letting you go. Just show us the confidence, the aggressiveness, all of that. We saw that with Poku last year. We saw that with Teo last year when they're like, go, make mistakes.
Yes.
Do whatever you want to do out there. We need to just see what you are. Second year, we're looking at Poku, a little bit more discipline. We're looking at Teo. He's going to be spending some time with the Blue. They're really trying to have him play a disciplined, tighter brand of basketball. That's a tough ask, and that's something that Teo is going through and dealing with right now, and he will get through this. But what we're seeing with Trey Mann and what we're seeing with Aaron Wiggins is what Poku and Teo got to do last year, which is just let it rip.
Poku had a really dramatic example of this with, obviously, he went to the G League bubble, came back to the Thunder, and was just a completely different player.
Right.
Was playing with a lot more patience, a lot more refined offensive kind of, skill set and ability. But like you're saying, it's just about making the most of the opportunity that you do have with the Blue and then kind of translating all of those opportunities with the Thunder. But that cheat code of just going to the Blue and getting those reps, really valuable for this team.
Yeah, it just hit me. I was thinking about Miami. Their G League team is in Sioux Falls Skyforce. I mean, to go from Miami to there and back and forth, it's just impossible. If you're, and that's not to pick on Miami. There's tons of teams that have their G League squads not particularly close or just maybe slightly inconvenient, 30 to 45 minutes. It's just not the same as it being in your same building and the practice facilities being 10 minutes away. It's just a totally different ball game. And as you said, that cheat code with the Blue and the Thunder is just, it's an undeniable advantage for OKC. Absolutely.
So before we take a quick break here and we go into our next segment where we're talking about Friday and some other really cool things, that Miami game, Gallo, there were a lot of milestones for the Thunder in that game, regardless of the fact that, the Thunder did fall short in that game, kind of couldn't keep pace with Miami's sharp shooting in that second half. There were some really, really cool moments and milestones for this group in that game.
Yeah, I want to pick out a few of them here. One is Darius Baisley. Career high 5 blocks in that game. And a couple of them were in help side, rotating over, just massive swats. One in particular on Dwayne Dedman that he launched that ball almost out to half court.
Yeah, that sent a message.
But he also had a couple on the ball, which on 3-point shots. That's really hard to do against the likes of Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. And so Baze's just activity, his motor, like that was so cool to see.
Yeah, and the one you're talking about against Duncan Robinson on the 3-point line, I think in that moment Lou had kind of fallen on the ground or kind of stumbled or something along those lines. Either way, he was out of play, out of position, and Duncan thought he had an open look. I mean, he got rid of Lu Dort, the defensive smothering presence, and then tried to release a shot, and there was Darius Baisley having his teammates back, swooping in and tipping that ball away. And I remember after that play, he was so hyped up and animated and just like, yes. and in that moment, I just thought to myself, like, what a cool moment.
Yeah.
Your teammate fell down and you were right there ready to help him. And that's what the Thunder wants when they talk about competing together. And Darius has just been all over the floor, just in terms of, we talk about that balance between aggressiveness and discipline. Some of those could have been fouls, but no, they were clean blocks, and a lot of them resulted in other opportunities on the floor for the Thunder.
Yeah, great resilience also to just not worry about what's going on offensively for him. And Mark Daignault said that that's just a continued sign of positive momentum for Darius to be able to hang in there competitively, regardless of what's going on the other end of the floor. It affected him a little bit against Brooklyn, not at all against Miami. Another front court guy that I wanted to talk about was Jeremiah Robinson Earl. He also in Miami had a career high night, 16 points and 4 made 3-pointers.
It was the 4 made threes for me that really stood out in this game, because Jeremiah hadn't been shooting the ball well in the Thunder's past 3 games. I don't think he had made a 3 in those past 3 games. And so for him to flush those past 3 performances, have a next play mentality, step up against Miami and stretch the floor and knock down the threes that the Thunder needed, big time for a rookie.
Yeah, and this is coming off a night where he goes for a career high in Thunder rookie record, tying 14 rebounds.
Yeah.
And has one of the plays of the game defending James Harden. But again, as you mentioned, he did not shoot the ball well. And so he's managing to find other ways as a rookie to impact the game. And so it's just, we're continuing to see just this level-headed approach by these Thunder players. And the last guy that I wanted to talk about just in terms of milestones is Josh Giddy, who recorded his 6th game of the season already of at least 5 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. He had a 6, 9, and 9 game against Miami. And he has really been like this like low frequency humming just beneath the surface in every single one of these games. He has not had these like explosive scoring outputs over the last few since we talked to you last, but he just fills up the stat sheet. He has these just like, not comparing him to him, just everybody please, but these Draymond Green stat lines of like, he is affecting the game in all of these different ways.
Yeah. And this, like you're saying, this is a theme for the Thunder of if Josh Giddey's not throwing his fast pitch in terms of, scoring offensively, there are other ways that he can impact the game. If Darius Baisley isn't able to, score to the level that he, normally is capable of and wants to, he can still bring the anchors that he has to his game defensively and things that he can control every single possession. That's what everybody on this Thunder roster has. Jeremiah Robinson, Earl. We're seeing the same thing over and over again. It's a common theme. Shea, even. Yeah. If teams are double teaming him and trying to get the ball out of his hands, he has been a great facilitator for this group over these past 3 games as well, dishing the ball out and recognizing that, my teammates are open. They can knock down these shots as well. And it's a good look for them. It's a good look for our team. That's a really, really strong, just to take your word, level-headedness to this group. One last milestone, Gallo. One last milestone.
I missed one.
So Darius Baisley had 5 blocks.
Yeah.
The team had 10.
Okay.
Which is a season high for the Thunder. And so it just, again, against Miami, it was a great defensive effort by this group, and everybody got involved, it seemed like.
Yeah, Miami came in as the best first quarter team in the entire NBA, a plus 6 point differential. OKC won the first quarter. They were tied at halftime against a physical team. They out-rebounded Miami for a good portion of that night as well. So really great job to throw a first punch on the second night of a back-to-back against a rested veteran team.
And a team that is disciplined. So you've got to execute really well on the defensive end, be sharp in your help, and have your teammates back, just like we're seeing in all of these sort of really great defensive moments by the Thunder.
Yeah, that's right. They forced 6 Miami turnovers in a 13-0 run in the first quarter alone. 6 turnovers to that level of disciplined team on offense. I know Eric Spoelstra must not have been very pleased with that.
Called a few timeouts here and there.
Yeah, and the Heat came out of the locker room at halftime a completely different team just in terms of their physicality, their pace, and intensity. And so, to force a team of that caliber, a team that was in the NBA Finals 2 years ago, to have to respond in that way and have to gather up that energy, great sign for a young Thunder team to be putting teams like that up against the ropes once or twice.
Couldn't agree more. All right, we're going to take a short break here, and we'll be right back.
COOP Ale Works is the proud sponsor of Thunder Basketball Universe. Brewers of the fan favorites F5 IPA and 99-calorie Ice Chest IPA. You'll find those and many more COOP beers at retailers across Oklahoma. Learn more at CoopAleWorks.com.
It is now that point in the podcast where we want to bless your timeline. And today, we need to just bless your timeline with Lu Dort.
The concept, the overarching philosophy that is Lu Dort.
Lu Dort has blessed all of our timelines over these past 4 games, excuse me.
Sure.
I'm not going to just keep it to these past 3 games. Let's start with the first and foremost, Gallo. After this past game against Miami, Lu Dort has now logged 4 straight games scoring 20 or more points, and that is the longest streak of his career.
That's right. He is just continuing to grow as an offensive player. And I don't think that we can understate how big of a deal it is for Lu Dort to emerge as a legitimate offensive weapon for this team. Because if he does that, he becomes a two-way player that teams have to account for. Over the course of time, you see teams that are in the playoffs and they can't play one of their players, or, a guy gets played off the floor because they can't defend or they can't rebound or they can't stay in front of, Lu Dort, if he becomes a complete offensive player, as we're continuing to see him grow as a shooter, as an attacker, as a finisher at the rim, he's going to be a guy that cannot be played off the floor on either end.
Right. It's about keeping the team out of dilemmas, right? You don't have to choose between defense or offense. One point that Mark Daigneault made that I really appreciated was that, this scoring ability we're seeing from Lu Dort right now, it's not really new.
Right.
It's not a surprise to anybody within the Thunder organization, because this is what they recognized from Lu that made him a two-way player in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he had an incredible defensive ability, great size, great athleticism, great ability to keep his opponent in front of him. But the other thing was, Mark Daigneault said this, he was just, aggressive offensively. We had to kind of like pull him in a little bit and say, whoa, like, there.
Whoa, Lu. Yeah.
Whoa, Lu. Yeah. Let's refine some of this stuff. Let's work on some fundamentals. That's Lu's baseline, is aggressiveness offensively. And his first season, his rookie season gala, when he first started to get minutes with the Thunder and being called up from the Blue, he did a really good job of, fitting in where he could, because
he took a back seat for sure.
Yeah, there were a lot of veterans on that team, and there was already a set kind of offensive scheme that was already set. And so Lu did a good job of not trying to force anything, just picking his spots and recognizing, I'm out here for my defense. I'm going to bring that 1,000,000,000%, which he did. And then layering in where he could some offense into that game. Take it to the next season, which was this past season for Lu, and we start to see him blossom and show more aggressiveness offensively. And now, when you add the experience that he's already gotten, plus the aggressiveness that he just is known for playing for on the offensive end, and just the refined understanding of how he can fit his skill set into the game, we're starting to see some of these incredible numbers.
So all of this then culminates into a single moment on Friday night when Lu Dort turns defense into offense on one play, and it's a high-level play on both ends of the floor. He makes a steal with less than 10 seconds to go on an extremely high-level player in De'Aaron Fox, gets out in the open floor and has to finish a contested layup that required a lot of skill and a lot of precision to actually get that layup with the timing right on his footwork and up over the defender. He's the shortest guy on the team for the Thunder. And he puts it off the glass. He squares his shoulders and he puts the ball in with, no time left on the scoreboard, basically, for a game-winning layup. And that is a culmination of Lu being a two-way threat, to be able to make the steal and make the score when it matters most.
That steal, by the way, it's just like patented Lu Dort defense, right? De'Aaron Fox, I think a screen was coming up behind him or something, tried to cross over, and you just don't cross over in front of Lu Dort ever. Just don't do it. Between the legs, behind the back.
Anything besides
word
in
of
front
warning
of you.
for anybody. But tried to cross over, Lu Dort right there, anticipated it, stole it, and like you said, finished really strong. Another note on his finishing, I forget which game it was. You'll have to forgive me. It might have been the Miami game where he had 3-and-1 opportunities. No, it wasn't the Miami game. It was the Brooklyn game. 3-and-1 opportunities. And this was an indicator of what Lu has been working so hard on for himself, and recognized this area of improvement after last season. Went into this offseason focused on finishing around the rim, finishing strong, finishing through contact. Lu's a strong guy anyway, so he has this ability to finish through contact, and now he has showcased that he can certainly do that.
Yeah, 14 of the 22 points that he had came in the paint. Actually, all of them at the rim. He shot 7 of 10 at the rim. So this is a guy that just continues to make strides in that category. And Paris, the big time play that he made, well, he did that in front of Mom.
I know. This is the blessing of the timeline for the ages, because that was the first time that Lu Dort's mom had ever been able to see one of his games.
In OKC.
Yes. Correct. So obviously Lu from Montreal, his mom still lives in Montreal. And so that was just an incredible moment for her to be in the stands for that insane game-winning steal and score.
So I happened to notice her in the stands over the course of this homestand. But that night on Friday, I actually hadn't seen her yet. And to peel back the curtain a little bit, I'm getting ready to go do a walk-off interview. The game is tied. And we'd already sort of planned on doing something with Lu anyway. And Matt Tumbleson, the head of PR on the basketball side for the Thunder, just kind of taps me and says, hey, by the way, Lu's mom's here. It's her first time being in OKC, seeing him play, he had just found out this information also.
Yeah.
And so just in that moment, I was like, I have to ask Lu about this. And so I saved it for the last question of that walk-off interview after Lu made the big steal and score. And we got a great answer out of it. He talked about it after the game as well to the entire press. But it turned out to be a really, really wonderful NBA moment that everybody got to see. And I know all of Thunder Nation was really happy.
Of course. And the one thing that just sticks out to me in that post-game press conference, Lu pointed out that, him, his mom, his family, they've all been through so much together. And obviously Lu went undrafted and had to move from Montreal to Arizona. Just like he's been all over the country, had to do so much to get to where he is right now. And so for his mom to finally be in Oklahoma City, to watch her son do what it live out his dream in person, in the flesh, I can only imagine is like a heart melting, just want to give both of them
it's like a Hallmark movie for sure.
Yes.
There's one more Lu thing.
I'm ready for it.
That you, I believe, asked him about after he talked about his mom in the post-game press conference. And Lu said that when he was in the locker room after that game against Sacramento, he was looking at the photos through his phone, and he just said, "Man, we look good."
That's right. The Thunder was wearing their City Edition uniforms for the very first time on their alternate court for the very first time. And, just keep it simple. We just look good. We just look good.
He was channeling Ron Burgundy on that one. Like, hey, everyone come see how good I look. But, as Kenrich Williams said, those are some icy white threads that the Thunder was wearing. And they'll be wearing those every single Friday night at Paycom Center this year that the Thunder has a home game, obviously. And obviously, we're encouraging Thunder fans to suit up for the city when they come down to Paycom Center as well.
Hey, we getting the city night
That's
spirit
right. That's
too.
right. We've got our white, our
Valley
silver,
Sports.
our gray. We're in the theme as well.
Got some options in the rotation for city nights.
No doubt about it.
Before we let you go, we got to let you know what's on tap for this podcast and the team as well. Let's start with the team. The team has one more game in Oklahoma City, wrapping up their 4-game homestand. That game is going to be on Wednesday against Houston. Then they're setting out on a 3-game East Coast road trip that starts in Milwaukee. It's actually a Milwaukee-Boston back-to-back. So that's
brutal back-to-back. So just be aware of that. On the second night of that back-to-back, losing the hour going to Boston from Milwaukee.
It's going to be a tough test for this team and for us as well. Yeah, we're getting that recap out after the Milwaukee game. Will be a lot of fun. So mark your calendars for those games. That'll be a lot of fun. And then our next podcast, it's going to be on Thursday. That should be a fun one.
Yeah, that's right. Royce Young will be with us. We'll talk about whatever happens in this Houston game on Wednesday night and preview a little bit that East Coast road swing, because after the Boston game, OKC gets a Sunday off and then takes on the Atlanta Hawks on Monday to conclude that road trip. So be sure to stay tuned to the TBU.
That's right. And until then, thank you so much for watching and joining us. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to tune in on YouTube as well. Thank you so much to our producer, Matt Bishop. And until next time, Thunder up and catch you later.